council meeting to order.
Take
We do
in-
have two changes to the agenda. One is the deferral of bylaw 4 OP 2020, and the second is the addition of a motion to allow the CAO to act as an MLEO. Although Mr. Burgess will not be acting in this capacity routinely, enforcement and public education are critical at the moment, so it's beneficial for our frontline staff to see their leaders in the trenches with them. If there are no other changes to the agenda, could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? On screen too, that's okay, that's carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent items. We have a consent item again. I'm just being directed here to remind council the exemption from part lot control is just a phase to assist in the development. The development itself isn't before council for approval or denial. That being said, if anyone wishes to pull the matter for discussion, please do so now, or we will proceed with the staff recommendation. Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder on the staff recommendation, for staff report DCS 20-29. That's an application that's been received requesting exemption from part lot control to construct a 14-unit townhouse development on 3 blocks of land located on Wyndham Street in the urban area of Simcoe. It's proposed that these dwellings be sold as freehold lots. Mr. Quattrocchi of Mayberry Homes and agent J.H. Cahoon Engineering have put forth the application affecting the lands described as part blocks 1, 2, and 3, register plan 37M-71. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Michele. All those in favor? And that's carried. Now, moving on to the communications, we have 11 items of correspondence, so we agreed before we will not do a recorded vote upon each one. If members could hold up their hands just for a minute on screen there, just so I can see the full vote. The first is the communication from Dennis Trevally, that the communication from Dennis Trevally regarding his resignation from the Committee of Adjustment be received as information, and that the position on the Committee of Adjustment remain vacant for the remainder of the term. I actually just wanted to pull that one and make a comment myself. The recommendation in Mr. Trevally's letter is that the position no longer be filled. So I was wondering if we might be able to send that back to staff to consider the terms of reference and then refer it back to the clerk. So if we could adjust the motion any issues with that? Councillor Martin, are you willing to move that? Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Clemens, did you have a question?
Yes, well, does that mean we are getting a staff report?
On the terms of reference, yes.
Okay, thanks.
The next is that the communication from Grand River Conservation Authority regarding the municipal levy and budget 2020 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Michele. All those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Van Passen, you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. Is my speaker on, or?
You're frozen, so maybe just give us a verbal. Next one, item C, is from Cam Carter, Chair, Downtown Simcoe BIA. The motion reads that the communication from Cam Carter, Chair of Downtown Simcoe BIA Board of Management regarding the request for meeting regarding secondary plan be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those, Councillor Huffman, did you have a question?
No,
okay.
no.
All those in favor? That's carried, thanks. The next is the communication from Kendall Zajic, President of Langton Area Minor Hockey Association, regarding the future of our local arenas be received as information and referred to staff for a response. Moved by Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor?
Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm asking a question.
Okay, go ahead.
If we could just pull that for one slight brief discussion.
I'll turn the floor over to you. Let's have it now.
Thank you very much. The only concern I have with Ms. Zajak's letter is the recommendation by staff is that it be received and referred for an appropriate response. One of the points made in Ms. Zajak's letter was that she has not had a response during some period of time, and I just want to publicly assure her if we are to pass this communication, that the response she will get from staff will be in a reasonably prompt and timely manner.
That assurance.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Councillor Michelli. So what all you're clarifying is that it be a response to her letter in a timely manner? I'm unclear as to what you're requesting from staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Huffman, my concern is that one of the items that she refers to in her communication is that she has not had responses, and our recommendation by staff is that they'll respond in an appropriate manner. I just want to make sure that she can be assured, and all the members of those organizations can be assured that because many of the items that they discuss in the letter are timely, and that they won't be waiting an exorbitant amount of time for that response. That's all.
Okay. And thank you, Councillor Michelli. And I just wanted to add, would this be an appropriate time in terms of a motion to reconsider to pull the arena item from the budget 2020? In particular, the COVID-19 has altered our timelines in regards to the RFPs that we were talking about doing with the local arenas, and with the tight timelines and with registration and things like that having to take place in the very near future. I'm just wondering if it'd be prudent that we defer our budget issue until 2021.
Did you want to say? Yeah.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a couple of quick comments. First, the letter from the individuals dated, or the emails dated March 10th. I think subsequent to this, staff have been in discussions with all the hockey associations and getting ice time requests currently. So to answer Councillor Huffman's questions, we're looking at the ice time requests that are coming in from the hockey associations to better position an answer for you, Councillor Huffman, on the timing of that RFP. The RFP report will come to council at the next council meeting, and the timing for that can be discussed. I don't want to presuppose council's decision, but it's anticipated that we would defer that. So I don't believe there's a requirement to change the budget. It's just a matter of we'll set the timelines within that, and staff will manage towards the budget accordingly based upon those timelines.
Go ahead. Councillor Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Mr. Burgess. It was really difficult to hear you. I couldn't make out really everything or anything that you were saying. My apologies.
Sorry. So your specific question of potentially opening up the budget again, we don't think that's going to be required. There's going to be a report coming to council next council session with regards to the RFP. Okay. And staff are in discussions with all the hockey associations to get their ice time requirements. The budget requirement was just to reduce the budget to a certain amount, and we're still confident with certain processes we can maybe still get to that amount for the 2020 budget.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions on that? Councillor Van Passen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is my microphone thing working? Okay. I would assume that staff has already discussed this issue. We got to remember that we're dealing with some housekeeping matters here. That letter from the Langton Minor Hockey is dated March the 10th, you know, where that's, I'm assuming that they've already had some discussions with our staff about booking ice time and all that, and it hasn't just been sitting on a shelf. Can somebody assure me that that is correct?
I believe that's what Mr. Burgess did right at the beginning. He said that
Yeah.
right away, that they had already spoken with them.
Okay.
Anything else, Councillor Van Passen? You're frozen, so I can't tell.
Oh, yeah. No, that's good. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
In that case, if I had a mover, Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Rabbits, that the communication from Kendall Zajac, President of the Langton Area Minor Hockey Association regarding the future of local arenas be received as information and referred to staff for response. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, that the communication from Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing respecting Roma follow-up be received as information. Councillor Martin, moving that, and seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. The next is that the communication from Jeff Urick, Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks regarding the Provincial Day of Action on Litter be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, that the communication from Laura Pettigrew, General Counsel, regarding the Ombudsman investigation be received as information. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Columbus. Do you have a question, Councillor Columbus?
No, I'm good with it.
Seconding? Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. Next is that the communication from John Mascaron, Integrity Commissioner, regarding the 2019 annual report of the Integrity Commissioner be received as information. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Was that a question, Councillor Huffman, or just a hand?
Yes, no question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to, well, I guess through you. I just wanted to, I've had quite a bit of correspondence from residents regarding this Integrity Commissioner report, and there were a few items in there I just wanted to discuss further if that would be appropriate.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, just a minute. Let me flip to my pages here. Okay. I just wanted to make note that I do agree with the line in the report on page 78 that good governance is not simply about maintaining tax rates, and I think that that's an important piece for us to keep in mind. And I do understand that the number of complaints filed was relatively large. We do think that, I mean, a summary was that because of the inexperience or the new, I don't like the word inexperience, but the newness of the council. But there were a couple pieces that kind of stood out to me, and these are the ones that I've had constituents speak to me about. One of the ones that I would like us to definitely pay attention to is looking at the anonymity of individuals who file complaints and the complaint fee. And also another big thing, and this is a personal one for me as well, is that I feel that there is a lot of prior consultation by members in our council amongst themselves via email or other electronic or digital means in advance of an open debate. And I feel that this demeans our transparency and our messaging to our constituents. So I just wanted to bring those items up for further discussion.
Any discussion from anyone? Okay, I have a motion that's been moved by Councillor Martin and seconded by Councillor Taylor on the table. All those in favor? And that's carried. Opposed?
Opposed?
And I can't see Roger. Can we see Roger? I guess we should have actually been doing a record, oh no, we said we weren't on these ones.
Yeah. Councillor Geisens, is your mute on there? I don't think we can hear you.
They're opposing receiving the report.
I can see you, Councillor Geisens. Can you raise your hand if you approve receiving the report? All right, you approve.
Okay.
Good.
Go ahead, Councillor Columbus. I did ask you if you had something further at the time.
Oh, it's not the easiest system to work with if you're sitting here. Councillor Huffman has raised some good points, and I wonder if we cannot get a further report from our clerk with respect to the Integrity Commissioner's report and have further discussion on it into the future when we're at the table in person and not missing out on some of the activities that are happening in the council chambers.
There's no activity, so if you have further discussion you'd like to have, let's have it.
Well, I'll put a motion on the floor to defer this communication and receive a report from our clerk or the CAO with respect to the Integrity Commissioner's concern.
We just passed a motion in council by a majority that we receive the report as information. So if you'd like to
Okay.
add something else, I'm more than willing to defer to you right now, but we did just receive it as information.
Right. Well, maybe in your case, you can follow what's going on sometimes, but some of the rest of us that are remotely, you've spoken about Councillor Van Passen being frozen, not being able to locate where Councillor Geisens is. So I'm just clarifying the same issues that Councillor Huffman has raised.
And I'm giving you the opportunity to speak. I asked specifically if somebody else had something to say, so here's your opportunity. But we have passed the motion to receive it as information. So if you'd like something else, now is your time.
Well, I just made the statement. Perhaps, again, you didn't hear me. I had mentioned that I'd like to have a report from either the CAO or the clerk with respect to Mr. Mascaren's and the Integrity Commissioner's concerns with our council, which was raised.
So you'd like the CAO to write a report on John Mascaren's report?
Yes, or the clerk. I don't know which department which person it comes under, but perhaps Councillor Huffman, it might solve some of the issues and concerns that maybe we do have to reduce our fee so that we are more accountable to the public.
If it assists council, if it assists council at all, the normal fee for an integrity commissioner complaint that you would see in municipalities is around $100. And that's been in place for municipalities that have had them for around 5 or 6 years. So $150 isn't an exorbitant amount for filing an application. And for it's returned to everybody unless it's a vexatious or frivolous request. So the county has not kept any of those funds on any of the complaints thus far. But Mr. Mascaren has a good point. And the same thing with the anonymity. There's two general fields of thought on that, and both have valid points that you have a right to see your accuser, but the other one is that you don't want to be discouraging complaints. So they are valid academic points for either Mr. Mascaren to present, or there is valid points on the opposite side as well for council to consider. That's kind of, I think, the only aspects of the Integrity Commissioner's report that it would be appropriate for any staff to really speak to, because he is independent and does have that kind of jurisdiction. We can't really, as staff, I specifically as the clerk can't really comment on other things he says.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Again, Mr. Clerk, I didn't hear whether you said 150 was an exorbitant amount or non-exorbitant.
He said it was not an exorbitant amount, and that all of the money that has been collected has been returned. Once you file the complaint, if it goes to an investigation, they return the funds. The only time the funds aren't returned is if it's vexatious or frivolous. So in fact, they've received their money back.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Huffman.
Yes, I just wanted to know if obviously there's no appetite for council to discuss the insinuation that there is a lot of orchestration that occurs prior to council meetings. And I do get a lot of feedback about that from the community, that they feel that that is occurring and that the council votes are not as transparent as they should be. And I don't feel that that's something that, if that is the perception in the public, I don't feel comfortable that we just leave it at that. And I would think that in terms of our due diligence and our transparency and our need for change, is that we take that seriously and we address that. And we have some discussion and dialogue about that.
Well, what's interesting is it generally would be the ombudsman that investigates those types of complaints and not John Mascaron. So perhaps he maybe is overreaching and making certain statements in his report. Anything further from anyone? Okay. Were you making a motion then, Mike? Is that?
No, I'm not making any motion because it's not going to pass.
Okay. Okay, so moving on then, next one is that the motion from the town of Bracebridge regarding support for the ban of single-use disposable wipes be endorsed, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada and the Honourable Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the local members of provincial parliament. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor Huffman. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. The next item is that Norfolk County Council endorse the motion for the Village of Merrickville-Wolford requesting that the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry to respectfully provide supporting evidence with respect to the expansion of wetland designations within their boundaries, and that Norfolk County Council calls upon the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry to respectfully review its practices and procedures to include a requirement to provide supporting evidence to impacted municipalities when designating provincially significant wetlands within their boundaries, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Rural Municipal Association. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Huffman. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? And that's carried.
Madam Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yes, did we do item F, page 71?
No, I don't think we did. No.
My
Jeff, you're-
apologies. I saw the
Clark.
Steve Clark. I thought it was a duplication of the other one. It was the two Steve Clarks, one after the other. Thank you, Councillor Columbus. So the communication from Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding protecting tenants and strengthening community housing acts be received as information. Discussion on that? No? Okay, mover. Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. Next is that the Recreational Facility Advisory Board minutes of March 9th, 2020 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Taylor. You have discussion? Okay.
There's a motion held within there. The general sense would be to expand the terms of RFAB to help them assist county staff in seeking that public input as we go forward here with what we're doing with our facilities. Let me just pull the page up there. 111. I'd like to put that motion on the floor right now.
Okay, motion reads as follows, whereas Norfolk County bylaw 2019-22 provides for the establishment of a recreational facilities advisory board, and whereas Schedule A to bylaw 2019-22 defines the terms of reference for the recreational facility advisory boards and includes the provision that the recreational facility advisory board's terms of reference be reviewed a minimum of once every 2 years, and whereas Norfolk County Council now deems it necessary to review and amend the recreational facility advisory board terms of reference, hereby enacts as follows. That the Recreational Facility Advisory Board be given an expanded mandate to assist county council and staff by being further engaged on existing recreational facility matters exclusive to those areas and directions already approved in the county's 2020 operating capital budgets. That a liaison working committee comprised of RFAB members and key county staff be established to facilitate the advancement of the group's collective expertise and synergy on current and future recreational facilities, including the Annalise Aquatic Center, and any potential changes to the scope of work required by the pending outcome of the county's provincial and federal funding. Sorry, that wasn't the Annalise, the All Norfolk Community Center. And any potential changes to the scope of work required by the pending outcome of the county's provincial federal funding application. And that the Recreational Facilities Advisory Board, at the direction of county council and in concert with county staff, undertake to engage the public and recreational user groups to collaboratively develop viable options for the long-term needs and uses of the facilities whose future framework has not already been approved by council in the 2020 operating capital budgets, and that the Recreational Facility Advisory Board, at the direction of county council, undertake in conjunction with county staff and recreational user groups to develop a comprehensive communications plan going forward. Any comments from staff on that? Jason?
Well, I think one of the challenges with this is that the RFP that's going to come forward is looking for community groups to either partner with Norfolk County, and that could be as far as fundraising or doing other things for particular associations. So I would have to get my head around, frankly, how you'd have another committee involved with that, where you may have community groups. I think it's fairly public that Delhi Chamber of Commerce, for example, came forward with some ideas for what they'd like to do in Delhi. So I would be a little concerned with how that would play out. Also, I think with this expanded terms of reference, it might be wise to go back and say how did those people originally get appointed? Was it more towards the all community hub, or was it truly a broader sense of it? So I think if you're going to reconstitute this committee, you may want to go back and take a look at right from the start to say, if we want this recreational committee, who's should be involved in it. There may have been people in the community that would have participated if they knew it was going to be a much more expanded one, that they won't have the opportunity to participate because they weren't part of this original one. So just some things for council to consider.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. If I could build on the minutes coming out of this meeting, this essentially evolved around wanting to do more, but the committee was feeling as though they were handcuffed in some way, shape, and form with not being able to or feeling as though their terms of reference didn't allow for them to reach out to staff and build on what was happening in other communities, recreationally speaking. However, the terms of reference were set for the Simcoe pieces of infrastructure that we were looking to deal with. So I don't know if I entirely agree with the terms of reference as printed and brought forward, but I do think it's time that the group either grows into something a little bit more, or the terms are just simply updated, and maybe a simple staff report can come back with some options for council to consider how we want to go forward at this point in time, should the terms of reference change or stay at all. I don't know that they need to be adopted as printed on page 111 and 112, but I think that the group is ready to either be able to dig in a little farther or have clarification on what those terms are. It is a new group. It wasn't alive for very long prior to this council coming in, and then we further developed what that committee consisted of, so maybe it's time just to take another look at it.
Councillor Huffman?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Councillor Martin. In terms of, I apologize for this. It's difficult hearing some people, so I just wanted to clarify what I'm hearing. So So my understanding was that in regards to the terms of reference change, that stemmed from some individuals on the board being, I can't think of the word I really want to use, maybe felt that they were blindsided by some of the changes to the closure of the rec center and things like that. And the committee feeling that they should have been part of that decision making. Is that correct?
If I may, Mayor Chop, through you to Councillor Huffman, I believe that was certainly a conversation that did happen in our FAB. However, as you know, it's not, this council doesn't have the ability to share closed session information with anyone, let alone committees, prior to making our budget decisions. So when all was said and done, they did not include the specifics of being included in those types of conversations in their terms of reference, but I think that they had a broader conversation as a small working group amongst themselves and decided that they wanted to have a bigger seat at the table with regards to other pieces of recreational infrastructure countywide.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And like Councillor Martin said, I think I'd actually be more happy, instead of this happening verbatim, I think I would like to see a staff report come back with options regarding the terms, what that would look like regarding a bit, allowing this group to really dig in a bit more and see what they can do to help out staff and that sort of thing.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion, Councillor Martin? Councillor Columbus, question?
No, I second it.
Okay,
Seconding.
lots of seconders. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Chop. I just would like to add that I would like to give staff the freedom to go outside of that as well. If there's an alternate solution that hasn't been brought up here, or in the language of Councillor Taylor, allowing the committee to dig deeper and work with staff, if there's also another alternate option that you think is best suited, then I would like to see that come forward as well. Thank you.
And just so council's aware, the membership of all the RFAB members expired the end of January, so we have been allowing them to continue on. But in this report, would you like us to bring back new terms of reference for council to consider before re-advertising for those positions?
I think we should probably have the discussion, before we re-advertise.
Yeah,
And we'll leave them as the
Sure.
current. Does that work for you guys watching? Councillor Hoffman, Councillor Columbus?
Yep.
Yes.
All those in favor? And that's carried. Next is that the Energy Conservation Committee minutes of March 6th be received as information. Any discussion on that? Mover and a seconder. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Michelli. All those in favor? That's carried. The next is that the Climate Change Committee minutes of February 21st be received as information, moved by Councillor Michelli, and need a seconder. Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? Carried. Next, we'll need a mover and a seconder that the Delhi BIA minutes of February 13th, 2020 be received as information. Any discussion on that? Councillor Columbus, discussion?
Just a move.
Okay, Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Huffman. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Mover for the Norfolk County Public Library Board minutes of January 22nd, 2020 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? It's carried. Next is that the Norfolk County Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes of January 21st, 2020 be received as information. Any discussion? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I know Shelley is here, but she's not in the room with us, so I might even be able to ask this question. It's a procedural question of Councillor Huffman, possibly. Page 131, 10B. There are a list of sidewalk and road repairs. Does Marie send that directly off to our public works staff? Is this something that, as a council member, I should be looking for my community and be sending it off? How does that work when you have the discussion in that committee?
Councillor Hoffman?
Okay. Thank you for that question, Councillor Martin. No, that information goes directly from our committee to staff in regards to the sidewalk and road repairs. So that goes directly to them. So as your role as a ward councillor, you wouldn't have to, I mean, I guess certainly you could follow up on it if you want, but you're not responsible for reporting it.
Does that answer your question, or did you want Shelley to?
Did you catch my, okay, Shelley's here, thank you.
Thank you, through Mayor Chop. That's correct, through Councillor Huffman. Any information that's provided at the Accessibility Advisory Committee, we send to the appropriate work order system for staff to follow and action up.
Okay, so again, a mover and a seconder that the Norfolk County Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes of January 21st, 2020 be received as information. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, that the Downtown Simcoe BIA minutes of January 15th, 2019 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. And that's the last of the communications. Let's take a 15-minute break if that's possible. So we'll come back at 5:20 and we'll begin with staff reports.
Okay.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, You'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of North on a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger along. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of North. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, South Coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just a place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, South Coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of North on a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, South Coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk.
You guys see each
You
other.
won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of
I would've figured-
Norfolk, my
I would've
cousin
figured Roger
county
would've had
home.
Poor
Norfolk,
internet compared to
Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long.
I think I liked the bigger screen last time around.
With hard work, we built a
Well, it's
dream
nice because you're right
that
in
only
front of
willing
us. When you're
hands
on the
could
little
do.
screens, that part is nice.
It's on display at
I
our
don't know, it's
fall
hard, like,
fairs and at
miss your
all the
hand or something like
festivals
that.
too. Erie beaches,
it's
Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk,
Pass these
Norfolk,
pros.
we know
There you
you
go.
can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk,
It's hard to figure out who is actually speaking.
Norfolk, Norfolk,
I think it's Monty.
you won't be a stranger long.
I thought I heard Monty talking earlier.
On a
Yes,
strip
you're right,
of
it's Monty.
sandy soil
Monty and
lies a
Mr.
county
Burgess are having a
called
sidebar
Norfolk.
conversation.
It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home,
Oh,
you'll see
are we getting
why
started
we
again?
love it here and are proud to call
Did we
it
miss a
our
meeting here?
Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of North on a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at
All right,
all
looks
the
like we've got more there
festivals
anyway. I skipped
too.
over the approval of minutes. We have a regular council minutes from February 18th and the special council minutes from February 7th before us. If there's no errors or omissions, they will be declared adopted.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So first staff report is staff report ECS 20-09. That's in regards to the summary of bid awards for the period February 25th, 2020 to April 21st, 2020. And Shelley, I guess that's you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. This report presents a simplified bid award report request to Council, outlining the various bid results from formal bidding opportunities that have closed during this period. The bidding opportunities have been developed and issued in accordance with Norfolk County's purchasing policies and procedures, and the recommended bidder has been proposed on the basis of having submitted the lowest compliant bid that meets the minimum specification. Staff are seeking approval for the respective general manager to execute contracts with the successful bidders and also initiate the applicable budget amendments and the issuance of debenture as outlined in the specific recommendations. There is one recommendation contained in the report that requires an amendment, and it relates to request for tender PWR 2020-33B, catch basin cleaning for 2020 to 2022. The second part of the recommendation on page 138 of your agenda package, in the middle of the page, should read, and that the 2020 operating budget be amended to increase the 2020 catch basin cleaning program from $60,500 to $134,600, with funding to be provided through reductions in various road maintenance services. This streamlined approach to bid award request has eliminated the need for 9 separate reports while providing council with a detailed summary of each request as outlined in attachment A of the report. Staff will assist with any questions that council may have.
Questions from councillors? Councillor Columbus.
Yes, my first question is with respect to the reductions in various road maintenance services. It's mentioned in a couple of these recommendations. And what will we be getting a list, or can staff comment on what kind of services will be cut to make this tender happen?
Thank you. Through the chair, Public Works can certainly put a list out. In some cases, it's just a quantity reduction, so the total amount of kilometers or meters might just be reduced to have the savings. So it might not be a specific area, but Public Works, once approved, can provide an information memorandum to council.
Okay, I had difficulty hearing you, but did you say that we would be getting a list of what that would be?
Yeah, Public Works will provide a memorandum to council, councilors on that.
Okay, thank you. My second question is with respect to hot mix asphalt in the urban areas to Cocoa paving. There's $106,000 where we're saving with respect to that tender. And I just wonder, with petroleum prices being as low as they are, I take it that's why we got the low bid. Would it not be worthwhile to do additional paving to use up the $106,374, being that the oil prices are low, to make this this asphalt mix?
Through the chair to the councillor, that is potentially one strategy. The challenge is part of the hot mix repaving is where potentially some of the savings to pay for some of the other projects may come from. So Public Works in that memorandum can provide additional comment on whether they can stretch that out a little bit further while still maintaining their savings.
That's what I'm thinking, is we should perhaps utilize that and stretch it out while oil prices are low.
I think the last report there, Mike, we started at $90,000 and it's now $1.5 million job. So this money got to come from somewhere.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Okay, with, can I have a motion to move staff recommendation with Shelley's one amendment in there? Councillor Rabbits, seconded by Councillor Michelle. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Recorded vote?
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, sorry.
So we'll start with the electronic participants. Councillor Columbus?
Yes?
Councillor Geisens?
Yes.
Councillor Huffman?
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen?
Yes.
All right. Councillor Rabbits?
Yes.
Councillor Martin?
Yes.
Councillor Michelle?
Yes.
Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Mayor Chop?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Next is staff report FS 20-14 regarding capital status report as of December 31st, 2019.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Kathy LaPlante is going to present this report today.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. The capital status report includes a summary of all open capital projects as of December 31st, 2019. The list provides the approved budget and expenditures as of December 31st, 2019, plus comments related to the status of each capital project. In addition, if the project has been completed, a recommendation has been included to close the project, and if needed, a recommendation for funding has also been proposed to fund any over expenditures. One area to note is on page 146 in Table 1. It lists the amendments that have been approved throughout the 2019 calendar year. Most of these amendments have been funded from reserves and reserve funds or debt. This results in an unfavorable impact on reserves and also increased requirements to issue debt. The only exception, which is a good news story, is the Norview UVC disinfection system project. It was actually funded from donations 100%. The other area to note is on page 147, Table 2. It outlines that out of the 198 open projects, 135 have been recommended to remain open, and 63 have been proposed to be canceled or closed. Based on the projects proposed to be closed, overall completion of the projects have been completed under budget by approximately $4.5 million, which results in a favorable impact to forecasted reserves and reserve funds, or less debt to be issued in the future. Just so that council to note to council, staff have been reviewing and discussing potential streamlined processes relating to capital projects and capital variances. And as a result, discussions have taken place, and staff will be bringing forward a proposed change in policy regarding capital variances in order to produce and project flexibility while applying funding to capital projects and to assist in completing projects on a more timely basis. Basically, the previous comment by Councillor Columbus, can't we use savings from one project to another project? That is something we will be looking at once projects have been completed. So at this time, I'd be pleased to answer any questions that you may have, and if I cannot answer, usually most of the questions are directed to Public Works, so Jason is here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Questions from councillors? No questions? Councillor Van Passen, you're good? You're frozen, so I can't tell.
Yeah, I have talked to staff about a few of them already, so I've had all my questions answered, so.
Okay. In that case, does somebody wish to remove the staff recommendation on page 148? Councillor Michelle, you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kathy, I'm just asking on page 147, it indicates near the bottom of that page for council's reference that at this time the effects from the current COVID-19 situation is expected to have only a minimal impact on the ability of staff to complete the capital projects noticed in this report. Is that still true as of this current date?
Through the mayor to Councillor Michelle, yes, that is still true. Staff are moving forward and diligently completing the 2019 and prior projects, especially the larger projects within Public Works and in community services. And they've also indicated, again, especially in Public Works, they are moving forward with their full capital plan at this time.
Thank you.
I just had a question. I just can't remember what page it's on. Actually, 1 second. Sorry. I guess just, Jason, if you could maybe comment on what the Port Dover wastewater treatment plant, how that's coming along. Godby. Well, we're just talking about capital projects, how's the Simcoe wastewater treatment plant upgrade coming along? Report's over.
Through the mayor to council, the Port Dover wastewater treatment plant, currently we have basically our 90% engineering design done on. There's actually going to be a little further discussion with one of the other reports later in the evening, which might be the more appropriate time to get all into.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jason, I'm just going to ask if I can, and I know that I'm referring to item number 75 on page 155. It refers to the, and I realize that this is a closed project, but it's about a generator, and it's the Port Dover Fire and the Walsh Tower, and I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the Walsh Tower. If you could tell me what that is.
Through the chair to Councillor Michelle, unfortunately, I don't have a great deal of details on the Walsh Tower, other than I do know from our own history, it's a county-owned communication tower that we have in Walsh. It has some of the fire dispatch radio equipment on it. We do have another lease for some of our other communications on that as well. So I believe the intention of that generator more than anything is just to provide continuity of service when it comes to some of our emergency services and those dispatch functions.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No? Okay. Somebody wish to move staff recommendation on page 148? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, recorded vote.
Councillor Columbus.
Yes.
Councillor Geisens.
Yes.
Councillor Huffman.
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes.
Councillor Rabbits.
Yes.
Councillor Martin.
Yes.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Councillor Michelle.
Yes.
And Mayor Chop. Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next report is staff report FS 20-16, 2020 tax policies. Kathy, is that you again, or? Oh, Sue.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to the rest of council. I hope in front of you tonight was a revised page 5 of this report. I apologize, but I realized an error in the 2019 figures just this morning. And my explanation on there is that when I went to prepare the report, I used 2019's proposed figures rather than the approved figures after the 2019 report. And the only thing that substantially changed was a reduction in the farm tax ratio last year. So those are actuals, and I apologize for having to send that out so late. So I won't go through the entire report. I know it's lengthy. Each year, municipalities must pass tax policy by law to form the basis for the final tax levy. The purpose of the report before you is to set the tax policies for 2020, which will then be used to set the final tax rates. The decisions that Council makes today will be included in a tax policy bylaw for approval at the next meeting. Issues such as tax ratios, reductions, and installment dates are regularly included in this annual report. As noted in the report, the tax increase estimates provided during the 2020 levy operating budget deliberations were based on the premise that the 2019 approved ratios would stay status quo, and staff is recommending the status quo for 2020. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Council authorized the payment of the two 2020 interim tax installments could be deferred to July 31st without penalty. Due to this change in timelines, staff is recommending that the final tax installments be delayed until the end of September and November, rather than the usual August and October. Because of this deferral to July 31st, final bill prep will occur in August after the July 31st payments have been processed. Council will recall approving new tax classifications in 2019 for small-scale on-farm businesses. In order to continue providing the reductions to small-scale farm business, Council must approve the classifications every year. The report also seeks Council's approval to begin phasing out the tax reductions to vacant and excess commercial and industrial land beginning in 2021. This will provide time to make the business community aware before a phase-out begins. If Council would like to discuss or ask questions about any of the topics in the report, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Questions from council? I have a question, Sue. How do we get to like the multi-residential, commercial, industrial, so far out of the range of fairness?
Through the mayor, to the mayor. These ratios have been in place from the beginning, and so when I contacted the Ministry of Finance for a little history on the subject, and I was in a lower tier municipality pre-tax reform in 1998, and as it was explained to me that the ratios, the ratios that were put in place were specific to each municipality and their circumstances. So, for example, there used to be, in the business world, there was a realty tax bill for commercial and then a business tax bill. So there were two tax bills to each business owner. And what this did was combine it, so it's a blended ratio. So to make a long story short, they were provided from the province, I believe 2 municipalities as a starting point. And in Norfolk County's case, since 2001, those ratios have not changed, with the exception of last year when the farm tax ratio changed.
And then that was distributed over what? To the,
farm?
yeah, that when we made the reduction to the farmland, it wasn't just, was it applied then, did it stretch those other range of fairnesses?
No.
Like, I never realized how far apart they were.
No, so what those mean actually, so in the case of the commercial, 1.629, so for every residential rate, we multiply it by 1.629. So by us reducing the farm to 0.23, it just shifted a little bit of burden to each of the other classes, but it didn't change the 1
It went equally
point
to each of the other classes.
in proportion.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilman Shelley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Sue. Sue, you included on page 170 of the report about midway through that there is a misconception that a rise in assessment value automatically translates into more revenue for the municipality. And I do want to thank you for including that in the report. That is a very widely held misconception. My question, though, is today, you indicate that instead, reassessment results in a redistribution or a shift in the tax burden. I wonder if you could just explain that a bit further.
Certainly, through the mayor to Councilor Shelley. If we take the case of, just in simple math, if all the properties in Norfolk County are worth $10 billion and the taxes are distributed based on the burdens that were given in the tax ratios, if next year nothing changes except for the value of all the properties collectively, they become 20 billion, everything in proportion doubles. So you're just redistributing the pie. Your share of the pie stays the same in proportion to your neighbors. So all things being equal, if there was no change in assessments, your share proportionately changes along with your neighbors. Does that explain it?
Yes, thank you. It does.
Other questions? Okay, would somebody like to move the staff recommendation or propose an alternative? Staff recommendation, seconded by Councilor Michelle. Is that a hand for discussion, Councilor Columbus?
No, I just wanted to vote.
Okay.
So we'll start with you then, Councillor Columbus.
Yes.
Councillor Geisens?
Yes.
Councillor Huffman?
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen?
Yes.
Councillor Rabbits?
Yes?
Councillor Martin?
Yes.
Councillor Michelle? Sorry.
Yes.
Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Mayor Chop? Carried.
Next report is staff report FS 2018 regarding the water and wastewater financial sustainability rate study. Kathy, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. This report is seeking Council's approval to move forward with a water and wastewater rates study that had earlier than previously recommended, given the length of time needed to complete an urban water supply operational study and Haldeman County's rate study. In addition, we feel there's a need to actually move forward, as the most recent actual study was conducted back in 2015, so it's almost, or going to be over 5 years old, so we feel it's a time to move forward, and there's been lots of changes. For example, the operating and capital budgets, they have changed significantly for water and wastewater services. Plus, there'll be additional pressures as a result of asset management plans coming forward and any results of infrastructure studies and the results and studies such as the Port Dover and Simcoe Port Dover wastewater projects that will be coming forward. Moving forward with the rate study will also be Council's opportunity to set their objectives and establish principles and guidelines to determine Norfolk County's future rates within Norfolk County. As we discussed before, the previous study was set and the rates were set based on very definitive council-approved principles and guidelines and objectives. This is, at this point in time, this will be presented to council so that they can actually make their decisions on how they would like to move forward and establish guidelines for the consultant. In addition to this, we're recommending a single source for this study and to engage Watson and Associate Economists Limited at this time. They've also been approved to complete Norfolk County's development charges background study and to complete a community benefit strategy. So we feel single sourcing this to this consultant will result in synergies and cost savings, most definitely. So council has any further questions, I'd be more than pleased to answer them.
Questions from councilors? Okay, somebody wish to move staff recommendation? Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Taylor.
Councillor Columbus. Councillor Columbus?
Yes.
Councillor Geisens?
Yes.
Councillor Huffman?
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen?
Yes.
Councillor Rabbits?
Yes?
Councillor Martin?
Yes.
Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Councillor Michelle?
Yes.
Mayor Chop?
Yes.
Motion carries.
CAO 20-07 regarding the incremental tax waiver and bridge program. I guess, Jason, is that you?
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, the report before council today is to seek a reconfirmation of a previous council decision to essentially waive the incremental property taxes associated with a pipeline proposal for the next 10 years. This program was previously approved by council. The Enbridge Group was not successful in that pitch and is repitching it under the new funding that's been provided by the government of Ontario and requires a reaffirmation of council's interest to waive the incremental taxes. There's two ways to look at this. This pipeline would not be built without the government incentive, and therefore you would never receive these incremental taxes, and therefore waiving the first 10 years still provides council with revenue that it wouldn't receive in years 11 to likely 40. Additionally, there is a distinct benefit to the users by being able to bring natural gas into those locations. So that's why staff is recommending that council again agree to support the waiver.
Any questions from council? Councilor Columbus.
Is there any estimate of the dollar value of this forgiveness?
Through the chair, there was some estimates provided. However, the final planning isn't done, so the valuation of the pipeline is not known at this time. So it is a bit of a guess, but you're probably looking at I believe Sue gave me the number that was estimated before. I believe it was in the $20,000 range per annum that would be waived. But if I've got that wrong, Sue will correct me on that.
Thank you.
Councilor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. You just got to look at this, that if Enbridge does not put the gas line in, there never will be any taxes. So we're not really giving them back anything if you look at it that way. So I would love to move this motion and get the natural gas line down into Normandale and Turkey Point. And if you would take that as me being the mover, I'd be happy to support it.
Seconder, Councilor Taylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, my bad. My bad.
Columbus.
Yes.
Geisens.
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes.
Councillor Huffman.
Yes.
Councillor Rabbits.
Yes.
Councillor Martin. Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Councillor Michele. Mayor Chop.
Yes.
Carries.
Next report, probably the best report of the night, staff report CAO 20-10, the coronavirus recovery plan. And I guess it's over to you, Jason.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, I promise I will not use the term, this is a roadmap, not a calendar, for those who've been paying attention with some of the provincial media. And for the record, we had ours put in print before the province's three-stage plan. So anyways, what's before you today is for approval of what we're deeming a framework, a planning framework for recovery. To be fair, these are uncertain times, and sometimes in uncertain times you can take kind of two paths. You can say, well, we don't know what's going on, so we're not going to make any plans, or you can develop a framework or a playbook that you can use as a reference point to make your plans going forward. Staff is taking the second approach by developing this framework to outline both internally to staff members and to the public that Norfolk has a plan. It will be guided by some key frameworks through the three stages that we perceive as recovery. We did put some timelines in there, but those timelines are really just for planning purposes, and we try to stress it very clearly through the document. The public health team will dictate the timelines, and the virus will dictate the timelines. So what's outlined there is for planning purposes. And so what we did was pull together a report. We tried to keep it fairly short and to the point. It's attached to the recommendation. But on a very high level, there's three distinct phases as we see it. The first phase is what we're in right now, state of emergency. The pure focus is on containing the pandemic. At some point in time, we'll move into a guarded phase. That's where there's the easing of the emergency and there is some preliminary recovery. That's what everyone's talking about right now, and people are going through different stages of it. That's where we'll move to in the next phase. And then the third phase is where there's more fulsome recovery and more return to, I'm not going to call it normal, but to a new normal. And in the report, you'll see through each of the phases where what are some of the key activities for both public health and some of the key activities for the county that we'll be doing. On the recovery side, I do want to stress that we are currently We are currently developing an economic recovery plan and figuring out where we want to put our resources to that. We will be reaching out and creating some key focus groups, very widespread, post-secondary institutions, accountants, lawyers, businesses from all the industries will be involved in that to bring forward ideas that, then we could utilize to move forward in that recovery stage. Most of that activity, we're starting that right now, to be fair. We're starting to put the groundwork in place now so that we're able to hit the ground running when we need the full recovery. So that's the plan that's been developed. Internally, staff is mobilizing around the plan and developing sub-plans around this. And as I said, the one thing I want to stress is the dates are there for, just for planning purposes. Those dates will change as we move through this. But I'd be happy to answer any questions on this.
Questions from councilors? No questions? Wow. Councilor Rabbits? No? Okay. I guess in that case, if I could have a motion to move the staff recommendation, Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Michele. All those in favor? That's carried.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry. Councillor Geisens. Sorry, Councillor Geisens?
Yes.
Councillor Columbus?
Yes?
Councillor Huffman?
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen?
Yes.
Councillor Rabbit?
Yes.
Councillor Martin?
Yes.
Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Councillor Michele?
Yes.
Mayor Chop? Motion carries.
Staff report CAO 20-11, Public Works and Procurement Matters.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll start off the report, and Mr. Godby's here to fill in more details. But the reality of this report is that current staff in water and wastewater and Mr. Godby noticed some irregularities when reviewing two significant capital projects, the Port Dover wastewater treatment plant and the Simcoe waste treatment plant. Essentially there was, in the case of Port Dover, there was one engineering award made under an RFP process of approximately $90,000. Currently, the engineering fees paid now exceed $1 million, and there's a requirement for additional fees to be paid to take the contract to the next phase. It wasn't as if these were over budget. The budgets were maintained. The challenge or the issue with this was whether staff sought appropriate approvals at the correct times and the transparency of the project. So we wanted to make sure we had timely disclosure of these facts as it came forward. There's also an issue with the Simcoe wastewater treatment project also, though that is of a smaller scale. So we wanted to raise it so that council was transparent of what was going on and what was the finding of it. And then it led to a different discussion that we're seeking approval from council on. One is, these are significant projects. The combined total is likely going to be about $50 million. These projects have taken several years to come to the current state. There's been significant turnover on staff on the county side and also turnover on staff on the engineering company side. And the projects grew in scope, so additional scope was added to it. So prior to awarding an additional single source to move to the tendering and contract management stage, staff is recommending an option that we take a very small pause of 4 to 8 weeks to obtain what's called a peer review, an engineering peer review. The previous terms used to be a value engineering assignment, but this is where we bring in an independent engineering firm to review the plans to date to ensure that what was designed is still appropriate, and if there's any potential savings, to look for those savings in design. And we think that if we provide that, it's good capital management practices, but it will also give council greater confidence that even though there was a single source of words provided without, the utmost of transparency, that the end project is still, we can still have confidence in the $50 million that we're spending. There is some downside to it, which is outlined in the report. There is added cost to undertake this additional review, and there would be likely 8 weeks added to the timeline for these projects. So that's the recommendation as we move forward. This would be a new practice, frankly, for Norfolk County. It's not, my personal view is it's a good practice for significant capital projects to have a second set of eyes on that, on the project, to drive to better results. It's like buying insurance sometimes. Sometimes you're spending money that you don't necessarily get any value back for it, but if you do obtain value back for it, even if it's a 1 or 2% savings on a $50 million project, it will more than pay for itself. So that was the rationale behind it. But both Mr. Godby, who has far more greater detail on how we got here and on the natures of the projects, are there and can answer those questions, or I can answer questions on the procurement, the modified single source procurement that we would undertake to get a peer review done.
Did you have anything to add?
Through the mayor to council, generally speaking, I believe Mr. Burgess covered the most of it. I guess really there's a few kind of key points with these projects that I just wanted to highlight. They're in the report, but more than anything I want to verbalize them for anybody who's listening. That we don't suspect that there's any issues with the work that's going on. And there's no suggestion that there's been any improper practices done here by any of the engineering firms that we've been dealing with. Both of these two wastewater projects have been reviewed by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. Their reviews have been completed. They've issued us a certificate of approvals based on that design. So they are satisfied we could move forward that way. At the end of the day, just a highlight of the Port Dover project, it does include a minor capacity expansion, as well as laying the foundation for a future larger scale capacity expansion when that community requires substantially more of an ability to treat wastewater. Simcoe is essentially a major overhaul of the existing facility. It is an aged facility where we've done upgrades over the years and certain aspects have just never been touched. There's a number of compliance issues with ESA and TSSA that we need to have addressed as well. Both of these will result in improved effluent quality from the facility, which is Port Dover discharges into the lake and Simcoe discharges into the Lynn River. So I mean, from an environmental benefits side, those are great things as well. And both of these projects are, like I said, almost ready. Simcoe is tender ready. Port Dover, there's some few finalization of the engineering design that needs to be completed pending the approved scope change. And they will both take approximately 3 years to fully construct.
Questions from councilors? Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I just would like to go back to the beginning of this report and make sure I have a clear understanding. So maybe I'll send these to Mr. Burgess, just so I'm on the right page here. This report, our report came to council in 2010 with a request for $90,000. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was an RFP award.
And since 2010, there has not been another report to council with a request for funding, yet the total fees paid to a firm are now $1 million with a request for more.
That's correct on the award side. There would have been reports through the budgeting process showing the increase in dollar scope, but not in the actual awarding single source awarding of additional contracts. There was, staff took a look and do not believe that there was any additional reporting than the first one for the award of the contract.
And so what exactly has happened over the last 10 years, since 2010, when a request came forward for $90,000?
I'll start the answer, and Mr. Godby will probably fill in the details. My understanding of the situation is that as engineering projects, that, you know, the first 90,000 was for preliminary type of design, and then you have that, and then you add on additional scope for additional items, and then you move to from early stage design all the way up to final design for, you know, contract tendering purposes. The existing firm was essentially provided those contract extensions to move from that initial award to where we are today, which is, it's a tender-ready project.
So I can appreciate that you weren't here and Mr. Godby wasn't in the position that he was in, but I just want to be as clear as possible. This firm has received more than $1 million. There's a request, or $1 million, there's a request for more money in this report here. In the last 10 years, the project's not been completed, and it didn't come forward to council as a formal request for more money to said engineering firm, although it came somehow, some way in a budget.
That is correct. I will say that the engineering firm in this case was actually was the one who provided significant information to fill in some of our holes, frankly, on how we actually ended up getting to this point. You know, so from the engineering firm's point of view, they did what they were told to do, you know, and in fact, they had better information in their files than we did. So
I guess I'm not questioning the engineering firm. That's not my wheelhouse. Public Works isn't my wheelhouse. I'm maybe trying to drive away at a point here that a considerable amount of money has been spent without it coming forward to council. And that could go for any project, but certainly I think it's probably very easy to say that this is the single largest project in the Port Dover community anyways, where we're in a bit of a pickle right now, and this is 10 years in the making. So my next question would be, what reporting systems have been put in place to ensure that this isn't happening and this council, or whatever council of the day, is being consulted?
through the chair, there are policies and procedures in place currently that this should not have happened, to be frank. So we are reviewing, you know, how we can ensure better compliance to the awarding of these type of contracts and putting some additional procedures into place. You know, unfortunately, this is happening at a time when there's lots of other stuff going on, so we would have preferred to have a more fulsome report to you on our corrective action. But what's in the report is that staff is going away to work with Public Works to ensure that these contract extensions get reported more fully. It doesn't mean that we may not have ended up in the exact same position. You may have ended up in the exact same position, but there would have been a lot more transparency around it. Additionally, from a transparency point of view, a project that lasts 10 years to get to essentially tendering stage, not even construction, you're going to have another 3 years of construction period. There should have been greater transparency to council and to the public as far as how this project was progressing. So that's another part that we'll work on going forward.
I guess, if I may, Mayor Chop, just my thoughts on this and reading this in general, I'm not looking to place blame on any one particular person. I understand how there's been considerable turnover and things can happen. I'm not looking to place blame on staff nor a company in particular, but in general, I would say this is completely unacceptable, and there's an entire community at large who has been waiting in the wings for some type of updates or work to be done, and people put their trust and their faith in the entire institution of the Corporation of Norfolk County, and 10 years without this coming back, I would say, is unacceptable. I don't like delays in general. I think things move fairly slow in municipal politics, but 4 to 8 weeks to get a fresh set of eyes on something like this, I think makes sense, and I would support peer review. Thank you.
I have, Councilor Shelley, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, and I think that this one would be for Mr. Burgess. Under the financial services comments, it indicates the very last paragraph of that section that further review will be required to understand how these projects were able to move forward without appropriate procurement methods and adherence to policies and so on. If that is the case, does that imply that that further review will be part of the actual peer review? Or will that be sort of I guess, a separate review process that we'll have to go through? And I guess I'll just ask now, if it is a separate additional process, will there be additional cost?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. It would be a separate process, and it would be done internally by staff members. So there won't be any additional external cost. It would be internal time only. And I think the findings of that will get rolled back out to council and as part of information. It may take a while just because of our current situation, but I think in talking to Mr. Godby and Ms. Darlington, we can't guarantee that there's not going to be these other ones that come out that may have been done the same way. There was probably a way of doing business here that's gone on for a period of time. This might not be the first one, but what we'd like to do is take a look at it, make the changes that are necessary to have better reporting and put better provisions in place and ensure that they're being adhered to.
So, I guess, Councilor Martin, you just made a bit of a comment there in terms of turnover. I wouldn't blame this on turnover. I think quite the contrary, actually. That's probably the reason there was turnover. So, I know we didn't have, our last head of Public Works wasn't always in Public Works. Development Engineering, I'm assuming, does a lot of work with us as well?
Through the mayor, that is correct.
So the former head of the planning department used to run development engineering, correct?
Through the mayor, no, not that. The structure was not that the head of planning looked after
Development engineering felt under development services.
Through the mayor, I guess development services would have had nothing to do with any of this at that time.
Development engineering wouldn't have?
No, development engineering would not have.
Would development engineering had to do with any of the other public work projects that we've seen errors on to date?
Through the mayor.
Like I could go through a list in terms of, since council's come into, since we've been elected, we found out that Port Dover was operating at a more than 50% water deficit for current capacity, despite the fact that we were told at a council meeting that everything was fine in Port Dover. Millions of dollars have gone uncollected for years in drainage accounts. Our capital budget that we were told in our first year, 3 weeks in as brand new councilors, was $14.5 million, I think. And that doesn't include, of course, this work. It doesn't include the $34 million wastewater treatment plant in Simcoe that we're told you guys have been given a heads up for several years that it was going to need to be upgraded. This year's capital budget now is $78.5 million. That doesn't include a water solution for Port Dover. It doesn't include a water solution for Simcoe. It doesn't include a water solution for Waterford, which we now know are actually potentially even more precarious than the situation in Port Dover. So 10 years ago, a company won an RFP for $90,000 to do some preliminary design work. 10 years later, we're just getting to a tender stage. So all they had to do at that point in time was win the RFP for the initial design work and then have a check to keep doing work for the next 10 years?
Through the mayor to council, I cannot confirm exactly that that is how things did transpire. From my own knowledge, I do know that the RFP in 2010 was for evaluations of Waterford, Delhi, and Port Dover. Through that, the primary focus did become Delhi and Waterford upgrades, which Delhi has been completed, fully reconstructed. Waterford is in progress of being completed. We're working on new headworks now. And I believe a great part of that 10-year was downtime where they had been pulled off of Dover to focus on these other communities, which at that time had a more urgent need.
And yet here we are with another urgent need again. So you would agree with all the other items that I listed, though, that this council has dealt with in the last year?
Through the mayor to council, yes, there are a number of issues that this council has had to deal with.
Jason,
that-
I'm not blaming you as well. Like Councillor Martin said, you weren't here at the time, neither was Jason Burgess. But I'm just trying to make a point that for when we have a report from John Mascaron claiming that there's an issue with turnover, there's a reason there was turnover. Any other questions from anyone else?
Yes, Madam Mayor?
Yep. I can't, sorry, Chris, you're frozen, or Councillor Van Passen.
I have no doubt that these are both reputable firms and they do good work, but after 10 years, there is a tendency to get tunnel vision when you're working on a project and keep amending it and amending it. And, I don't think it's a bad idea to, like the recommendation as presented in the report, to get a peer review done, take a step back and look at it and make sure that we're offered up the right solution for these projects. I know, on my little business on the farm, if I have a problem with my corn, my fertilizer guy has a fertilizer that will fix that. And my spray guy has a spray that'll fix that. And the seed guy has a seed that'll fix it. But that doesn't necessarily make any of those the best solution to the big picture.
So it sounds like there's an appetite to move ahead with the peer review.
Like, I would move the recommendation as presented, that we receive it as information, do a modified procurement on a peer review, report back to council with the findings of that review, and at the same time carry on with a review to make sure that our policies and procedures are being followed in the right way. And at that point, then deal with whether we keep the same engineering firms and to deal with the project itself. But I think that little bit of delay and in the scope of the cost of these projects, an extra $50,000 to do the peer review is probably well worth the money.
Okay, I think you've got a seconder in Councillor Martin on the other side of the table. Any further discussion on that? Going once, going twice? Okay,
Yep.
Councillor Columbus.
Yes.
Councillor Geisens.
Yes.
Councillor Huffman.
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes.
Councillor Rabbits.
Yes.
Councillor Martin.
yes.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Councillor Michele.
Yes.
Mayor Chop.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Trying to scribble a list of some of the capital projects that went squirrely, but I lost my paper now. Next one, if I have this correctly, staff report PW 20-28, utility easement for Enbridge and Port Rowan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to council. This report is basically presenting a request to execute an agreement with Enbridge Gas for an easement over a portion of property that we own in Port Rowan. If you look at attachment number 1, it's page 203 of your agenda, you can see the map. There's an alleyway that runs from Church Street down to Wolven Street, just east of Bay Street in Port Rowan. There is a Union Gas or an old natural gas line in that area. The interesting thing here is that alleyway is actually a single parcel of land which is owned by the municipality. It is not designated as a roadway or a right-of-way or a laneway or a street, so we need an easement in order to allow Enbridge to replace their gas line, which currently exists there. So essentially, this is just to get them to do some work prior to us doing some of the water main work, which will be done down in Port Rowan, and just to clean up that file. So if there are any questions, I will gladly entertain them.
Any questions from councilors? Councilor Michelle?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Godby. Jason, I'm just asking about the timing of this project. I just want to absolutely ensure, because we do have another water main project going on in Port Rowan, and with both of those projects, I just want to make sure that the timing of those projects will not interfere with the business activities of the Port Rowan business community, and also with the Bayfest parade and celebrations around Labor Day. So I hope you can maybe just comment on that a little bit.
Through the mayor to Councilor Michelle, with respect to this work for the gas, Enbridge has been dealing with our engineering department to try and expedite getting this report and this easement authorized in order that they could get in and get their work done ahead of us needing to get into Port Rowan and doing any work. The idea being they can do their work and then we can immediately proceed with ours. I know our project manager who's looking after the transmission main project has been in conversations with some of the businesses in Port Rowan. From a staging standpoint, they've been working on a plan to try and get the in-town works done with minimal impact and then focusing it away from, the fall tourist season and Bayfest and all of that, and focusing a lot of the efforts on the rural section. One thing I had intended on doing in the coming weeks or the next council meeting, whatever that may be, is to come back with more specific timelines on all of our construction projects that are going on this year. As you know, with the regulation changes and things that have happened now, we've had delays or perceived delays or fear of delay of some of these projects going. So we have contractors who are revising their timelines to match up. So I can bring back significantly more information on that in the future, specifically about this project for you.
Jason, thank you. That additional information would be very helpful. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, I have a motion that's been moved, staff recommendation by Councilor Michelle, seconded by Councilor Rabbits.
Councillor Geisens.
Yes.
Councillor Columbus.
Yes.
Councillor Huffman.
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yeah.
Councillor Rabbits.
Yes.
Councillor Martin. Yes. Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Councillor Michelle. Mayor Chop.
Yes.
Carried.
Next report is staff report PW 20-31 Waste Management Program update. Jason, is that you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council. This report, the Waste Management Programs update, was originally started as an information memo, but then we kind of decided that it'd be a good idea to make sure that council heard all this directly and the people at home can understand what we're doing as it relates to our waste management programs. So the first item that we wanted to address was the bulky item collection program. This was approved for 2020, and we just wanted residents and council to know and understand that we do fully intend on proceeding with this program. It is currently scheduled for the month of June. The rules and regulations are highlighted here quickly, but basically you can put up to 2 cubic meters, or basically a pickup truck load of household items out to the curb for collection. There will be a schedule which will be further advertised. We've been working with our communications team to get some of this information ready to make sure that residents are made fully aware that this is going on. But basically through the month of June, we will be doing all these collections. The second one we wanted to talk about was the Household Hazardous Waste Program. Normally we offer 4 of these HHW, or Household Hazardous Waste Days, through Norfolk County. With the current COVID-19 pandemic, we have already canceled the Simcoe event. It was scheduled for April the 25th. We are also canceling the Delhi HHW event, which was scheduled for May 23rd. That leaves us 2 events that are scheduled in the fall. One of those in September and one in October. Essentially, we'll end up with 2 events proceeding with 2 events, one on the east side of the county, one on the west side of the county. We have not finalized the exact locations at this time. Essentially, we want to do a better review and discussion with the contractor who provides this service to make sure that we're expecting more material to be brought, and we want to make sure that we've picked the best location for what we're anticipating to be an increased traffic load, as well as for the increased volume of hazardous waste materials that we're expecting to receive. Just as a side note, the HHW collection is a free service to residents. They do not pay to dispose of these things. The final thing we wanted to just quickly touch on was our waste transfer stations. That is the waste transfer station in Simcoe and the one in South Walsingham. These were closed on March 18th due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We wanted to advise council that we are working towards reopening these transfer stations. We're tentatively shooting for mid-May. It may be on slightly reduced hours. We do have those 2 sites. We've looked at various things of operating one of them 3 days a week and the other 2 days a week, or 2 days a week, 1 day a week. But essentially we need to work with our site operator contractor and ensuring that we do have staff availability in order to continue to reopen these sites. Additionally, we are working on finalizing our new operating procedures to ensure improved social distancing, as well as we are looking at only accepting debit or credit payments, whereas in the past we would sometimes accept cash. So as a final plea to our residents, I would just like to say that with the bulky item program proceeding in June, and with us looking at reopening transfer stations in May, we're hoping that people will continue to just hold on to their waste. There has been a noticeable increase in roadside dumping over the past month, which we feel could be attributed to people being home and looking to get some spring cleaning done. So I guess our plea here is that the transfer stations, we are looking to reopen them, and bulky pickup, we will come get that and dispose of it for you. So please do what you can just to safely store your waste until a time that we can can dispose of it properly. If there's any questions, I'll gladly answer.
Any questions from councilors? Did you want to talk about the app a little bit?
Through the mayor to council, yes, that the app is a good, I left it in my other package in the office, the recycling coach app. It's, there's a memo contained within your information package, which essentially Norfolk County has partnered up with this app that will, you put it on your smartphone and you can query it for disposal of various items. You know, where does it go? Should this be, is it recyclable? Is it not? It tracks, we feed the information in, so it'll track things like delays in collection service. It'll insert, and you can find out when your bulky item pickup collection is. You can use it to track the Christmas tree program and leaf and yard waste. All of our programs basically get loaded in there. It's a free app to download, and we can use that to communicate very effectively any of the changes that we make to our waste management programs.
And what's the best part of the app?
The best part of the app is that it's free.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I didn't pull this item for discussion because I'm slightly conflicted with encouraging the public for, during COVID, to go out and put themselves in a situation where they should be maybe at home instead. But on page 73 in our agenda, we received correspondence from Minister of Environment with regards to establishing second Tuesday in May as Provincial Day of Action on Litter. So while I don't want to encourage the public to go out, even though it's good to be outside and exercise, I wonder if maybe our communications team wants to somehow wrap that date into getting the app and recycling and not dumping on the roadside, and maybe plant the seed for that date for next year.
Let Matt know, he has drafted a media release already about the app to go out, but if he hasn't put it out yet, we can maybe add it in there still. Anything else? Does somebody wish to move the staff recommendation? Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Taylor. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, so just the first one is coming off, so motion to approve the bylaws, that bylaw 2020-30, bylaw 2020-31, bylaw 2020-32 be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, affixed with the corporate seal. It's been moved by Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Sure.
Do you want to
Oh,
do
sorry,
an order on
yeah,
them?
sorry.
Okay.
Councillor Geisens?
Yes.
Councillor Columbus?
Yeah.
Councillor Huffman?
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen?
Yes.
Councillor Rabbits? Councillor Martin? Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Councillor Michele?
Yes.
Mayor Chop?
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, so moving on to Councillor Martin, motions. We have a motion to reconsider being advanced by Councillor Martin. This will require a 2/3 motion to proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. This Motion of reconsideration comes forward after a discussion with staff. I think that they are looking for a bit more direction from council as to what we would like to do moving forward with Don John Boulevard. If council will remember, we had a deputation come forward with a petition for the removal of sidewalks, and then we were heavily lobbied by the community for the implementation of sidewalks, and possibility that not everyone had been consulted on that petition. So for staff to move forward and look for some direction, it needed to come back to council. So I might pass it over to Mr. Godby for comment.
Through the mayor to council. So yes, as Councillor Martin indicated, in October of 2019, staff were directed to remove sidewalk installation from back on older or something of that nature in lieu of a sidewalk. So essentially from a staff perspective, direction to remove the sidewalk, and the additional information that I have is essentially surrounding the sidewalk. Procedurally, I'd be reconsidering this discussion information, or am I seeking additional direction at this time, or am I just providing information? I don't know procedurally where we're at.
I can't. Yeah, go ahead.
So I guess the question before council is if there's a motion on the books that the sidewalks be removed. If council wants to revisit that, you need to, or debate it again, you need to pass a motion of reconsideration.
Councilor Martin, go ahead.
However, this is a massive contentious issue for the residents in that community. They're not necessarily provided with an opportunity right now for fulsome discussion on it. And I don't have any of the figures, the dollar values, or of that, any of that information of that nature in front of me right now to advocate in one way or another for a decision. Although the last time we sat around and had this discussion, we asked staff to bring forward options on a paved shoulder. So snow removal wasn't going to be disrupted, and maybe there was potentially a reflective paint put down so it was used as a bike lane and or a walk lane. But otherwise, I was under the impression I was bringing this forward so that we were able to kind of take the handcuffs off staff to bring us that information back.
So one of the options that was looked at that council had asked us to look into was the provision of a paved shoulder incorporated within the roadway between the curbs that could be plowed by the snow plow, so the residents adjoining these properties would not be responsible for snow removal. From a cost implication standpoint off the hop, our preliminary estimates of changing from a sidewalk to a paved shoulder slash bike lane throughout the extent of this project are essentially a wash. The total potential savings that we're looking at for sidewalk installation are in the ballpark of around $63,000 on the scope of this project. In order to widen the road and the increased asphalt that would be required and road base for that matter is going to be in the area of around $60,000, just under. Then, in order to facilitate this, we get into the engineering challenges. Essentially, if we add a bike lane into this area, we're now widening the road, which has already been designed. So there will be a review need to be done of the grading and drainage implications of adding an extra 1.5 meters of road base, of pushing the curb line further into what would be grassed area of the road allowance. So all in all, the engineering estimates are going to be around $6,000 to $9,000 in order to complete all the required engineering updates for this in order to do something of that nature. In general, I guess, on sidewalks, this area in particular, when the question was raised about why there were sidewalks included on this portion of Don John Boulevard, essentially it is because it was identified in the Integrated Sustainable Master Plan and the Active Transportation Plan, which were adopted by council to be Norfolk County policy as it relates to sidewalks, as it relates to bike lanes, as it relates to projects that we move forward with on our water and wastewater systems. This was specifically identified as a missing link of sidewalk. If you go to the northern projection of the project limit, the sidewalk starts and carries through the rest of the Somerset subdivision over to, I believe it's the Black Creek Conservation Area walking trail on the east side of that development. So when the ISMP and the Active Transportation Plan were completed, this was identified, and that's why it was put in the project plan. Just as a general commentary on the processes that went into the ISMP and the Active Transportation Plan is these were long, heavily debated, and projects that required a lot of public input and went on for over the course of over a year in order through many variations and many public meetings, and there were lots of public input garnered across Norfolk County as to what was intended to be the guiding document for us for what the people of the county as a whole needed and wanted built. So from our perspective, that is why it was put in there and supported, not necessarily taken out at the request. We do have Public Information Center files from the very first PIC that was done at the start of May about Don John Boulevard, where there were 3 noted objections to sidewalk installation. We have 1 noted pro for it, and since this debate came up is when some of the other residents who remained silent at that initial PIC have been coming forward with their personal opinions on whether a sidewalk should or should not exist in this area. I don't know if I covered everything of relevance for you or what you were looking for. If you have any other questions, I can try and answer that.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I was going to ask about the PICs. So since then, do you have overwhelming communications and correspondence from community members that are leaning in one way or another? Council's had conflicting information.
Through the chair to you, Councilor Martin. Essentially, Public Works has not heard a whole lot on this issue. I went through most of my files last night. What I have is essentially it's a 50-50 split of those who believe that it is essential in order to connect to the rest of the sidewalk network, and those who do not want a sidewalk.
And is there a change in the completion on the project one way or another? Does it push the date out one way or another substantially?
Through the mayor to Councilor Martin, as the project currently stands right now, the engineering design is on hold pending any further direction from council.
So we're not even that far yet. Okay. And then we've had conversations with regards to the Ministry of Transportation and a crosswalk over Highway 6 at the end of Don John Boulevard. Has that progressed any further? Because I think that that is an important element to, in one hand, we're advocating for no sidewalks, and then on another hand, we're advocating for a crosswalk to go across the highway for families and seniors to use.
Through the mayor to Councilor Martin, I would have to follow up specifically on that crosswalk as to where it stands. There has been conversation with staff at the MTO on it. However, in light of some other issues that have been going on, I haven't honestly paid that close attention to where that one is sitting.
I guess I would turn it over for any comments from my colleagues or the mayor. At this point in time, I'm at a loss and would prefer maybe a bit more direction or information from staff to make a decision here. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to be doing it when we're not calling on the residents to speak to it further.
I have to be honest, despite Mr. Mascaron saying how we coordinate ahead of time for our meetings, I'm actually totally confused right now as to, because we had already moved to.
And then Mr. Godby asked for it to come back because his hands were tied to bring forward additional options because we had a motion set forward for sidewalks. And we then began a conversation with him for additional options that included not sidewalks, paved shoulders and so on. And he wasn't able to bring that information to us in a formal report. So the reconsideration came forward to have this discussion.
Because why?
Because they need direction from this council as to how to move forward, and a conversation evolved outside of implementation of sidewalks.
I thought we moved for no sidewalk, but we were just interested in some of the prices on the other options, and like you said, it was the issue with between the driveways and stuff, that there might not be enough for a bike lane, because it wasn't going to be wide. I can't even remember myself.
Yeah, through the mayor to council, the way we ended up here tonight on this is that Public Works was told not to install a sidewalk.
Right.
And then there was a certain level of the public that were then questioning the fact that council had made that decision. And in order to even continue to talk about potential of leaving the sidewalk in, reconsideration was required so that we could have this chat. You are correct.
So some constituents didn't follow the council agenda, and then after the fact complained about the night that we specifically held this, and we listened to a bunch of people make deputations on it, and now we're going to go back, and you're wanting a council member to bring back a reconsideration on it to talk about leaving the sidewalks back in. This is why we have jobs that last 13 years. I thought we were just getting a quote and some estimates, or whether or not it was even possible to do a bike lane down the side. That was the direction from council. I've been totally confused of what's even going on here. So I'm interested still in the quotes, like the original motion on what it would take to leave the bike lane. Is that, Councillor Martin, what you're thinking too?
To be honest, I have no idea what the preferred best solution is in this situation. I think the additional confusion comes from claims from the public that the petition that was brought forward to this council wasn't done fulsomely. It wasn't done appropriately, and there were names on that petition that those individuals didn't contribute to. And so there was not a second opportunity for the rest of the public to come forward and speak on it if they didn't attend the PIC meeting.
If I could, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Van
And I got to apologize. A lot of what we're hearing, or what I'm hearing from staff, is it fades in and out, or it skips out. And so if I'm repeating anything that Mr. Godby said, excuse me. I think we need a motion of reconsideration to allow staff to bring us a report on the different costs, because if you're doing, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, if you're doing the road with a sidewalk, that sort of is the integral part of the drainage system, and it's designed differently, and the drainage works are different than if you're putting in a bike lane and ditching and that. And I'd like to see the options on a cost basis on the design, whatever different ways they want to bring to us. And at some point, we should also have the discussion, because I need some help on this, because the number of sidewalks that are in Ward 4, I'm not even really sure where they are and what they're for, but are sidewalks put in place particularly for the adjacent landowners, or are they for the community as a whole so that people can conveniently get from one end of town to the other end of town? And that's the bigger discussion that needs to take place. And but I do believe we need the motion to reconsider, to sort of untie the hands of staff, let them bring us a report on all possible options, and let us decide on it and make a decision and move on it from there.
We did speak about staff bringing back a report in the future, I recall, on sidewalks, and the fact that there were so many sidewalks that were being put in areas that maybe, didn't need them as much as other areas that had a much higher need around schools and so on and so forth. There didn't seem to be a lot of logic to some of the choices that had been made. So I do recall that we had asked for that direction at the time. I don't understand why we need a motion for reconsideration when they should have already had the estimates for the job with the sidewalks. So that part arguably was already done because they were moving ahead with it. And then they were going to bring ahead the other options. Now, if once you see all the options, you still want to reconsider it and have no sidewalks, or have sidewalks now, why it couldn't be done at the time, I don't understand.
Well, I think if this subdivision would be built today, it would have sidewalks, the developer would put them in, all of those things. The reason we're working on the road is because it is so old that the infrastructure underneath is what needs fixing, and we're going to do the rest of it at the same time. But I believe if this was a new subdivision going in, there'd be no question about whether or not the sidewalk would become part of it. It's not one of those little corners in the back of nowhere that doesn't really need them.
Well, actually, until this council came in and said that they were going to not, that developers were going to be required to put sidewalks in, I think they were waived quite often by previous council.
Yeah.
So.
I think this area is about, 40, 50 years before that, so.
I still don't agree that we need a motion for reconsideration today, why we can't still have the report come to council that was originally asked for.
If it assists mayor and council, I think one of the reasons why reconsideration was just suggested was because we've got a resolution of council saying that sidewalks shall not be installed. So staff don't want to be disrespectful of a council decision and present that as a potential option going forward. So staff could definitely present the cost of the bike lanes and the paved shoulders. That's the direction that they've got. But to do a comparison of that to something that council's already eliminated as an option would be kind of somewhat disrespectful to council's current direction.
And I don't feel disrespected because it was already something that was worked on. So they should have already had those numbers. And so I would just assume you would be comparing it to the sidewalks. That was what we talked about at the time. So can we just assume then that we're going to get the report that was originally asked for?
Through the mayor to council, I can bring back a report further detailing other options with the sidewalk ruled out, as that is the direction that we currently have.
But you can use the sidewalk as the basis of comparison. Here's what it was going to be, and you're going to save X amount if you move to this, or it's going to cost you this much more if you move to that.
Through the mayor to council, that is correct. I also believe that part of the reason for the request for reconsideration was to allow those other residents who felt that their voice was not heard and was not reflective of that petition in October, in order to have an opportunity to speak to their opinion on the sidewalk. Without the reconsideration, it is my understanding that the council decision is there will be no sidewalk in that section of Don John, and therefore it cannot be discussed any further.
My problem is this opens up a whole can of worms in the future with all kinds of decisions that we make when they come forward. They knew it was in the council agenda. They had an opportunity to come and speak to it. If once we see the results from Public Works, it looks like we might consider doing a sidewalk again, if the costs are not that much different or so on, then why can't we have a motion for reconsideration? Then notice will be provided to the public, because we'll have to provide 2 weeks of notice for the reconsideration, and they can show up at that time.
Through the chair to council, I can have a report here next meeting.
Councilor Martin, does that work for you? Councilor Van Passen, does that work for you?
Or the other option is that I can second the motion and put it on the floor. If we get a 2/3 majority, then it goes one way, and if we don't, it goes the other way, so.
But if it
Doesn't
goes the
really-
other way, then you might not get the information you wanted.
Well, having a preconception of what information you want when you don't know what you want, sort of defeats the purpose. I would like to see all the options on one sheet of paper to say, here's how much it costs to do it one way, because it's not like you just add something to it. And again, maybe staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're designing it to be built with sidewalks, gutters, drains, it's a totally different job. It's not like you do everything the same and then just pour 4 feet of cement on each side. There's a difference to how you go about the entire project. And I'd like to see the side-by-side comparison of the two at the same time, not just say, well, a year ago we looked at it one way and now we're looking at it another way, and here's a bushel of apples and here's a bushel of oranges, and let's see which one I like now.
Through the mayor to council, Councilor Van Passen does raise a good point. The one thing that I will point out is that we can only speak in very approximate terms and generalities relating to the engineering design unless we are willing to pay to have the actual engineering completed for each of these various options, being bike lanes on one side or two sides, being bike lanes with sidewalks or no sidewalks, being no bike lanes and just curb and gutter. Where do you put the parking? Is there parking on one side? Do we now lose on-street parking because of bike lanes? There's all these different variables that can go through, and the level of effort and detail, I guess, is what I would be looking for some sort of direction on. How much engineering design are we going to put on this, recognizing that that we're just, it's going to come at a cost in order for this work to be done.
How many citizens came forward to say that they didn't feel that they were heard when there was ample notice provided?
Through the mayor to council, I have at least 2 that I was contacted directly by. I'd have to look in the other file as to what other members of council may have sent me anything that they would have received. I don't keep track of all of those, and I had.
Okay, but we're not 2, not 200.
Yes, that's correct.
Councilor Shelley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just checking my notes about that day we originally discussed all of this, and I had recorded that there were 3 such people.
Councilor Hoffman, sorry, I didn't see your hand there. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to this current discussion, I completely agree with you, Mayor Chop. This issue has been brought forward. It was given due diligence. It was given notification. A decision was made by council. I unfortunately wasn't around when this decision was made. But to me, you're right. If we do things like this, when we look 6 months down the road and going back and changing things, we'll never get jobs done. And that's where things get more expensive, because now this was something in October. Now we're in April and we're still looking to get things moving. So I think this is a dead issue and we need to move on.
Thanks, Councilor Hoffman. Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I don't disagree with that in the least, and I don't have a preference for how the job gets done and when it gets done and what direction. The problem is that we're at a standstill here, because I don't think that, from what I'm hearing, we're going to get the information as a comparable. So I think that's why the decision needs to be made, so we can at least get all of the facts in front of us.
There's a big difference to using something as a comparable in a report and asking for a motion for reconsideration because 2 citizens emailed our head of public works and said that they weren't heard. I don't mind if, when you bring the options that we had asked for way back when, we did ask for what would a bike lane look like, what would the extra cost be, and when we said extra, or what would the savings be, clearly the sidewalks were the baseline because that's what we were going to look at. So I am not comfortable with moving for a reconsideration because 2 people emailed the head of public works, but I certainly don't mind providing some direction to use the sidewalks as the baseline for the discussion of bike lane or no bike lane.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Councilor Martin?
I would just like to add, I don't think that it is fair representation to say it's 2 people, but none of us have that information in front of us right now to make that decision.
But you're telling me that you were approached and asked to put this motion on the floor by staff?
Yes.
Okay.
But I have heard from more than 2 people that live on that street. I don't think that's fair representation of the issue, which is why I also am struggling with doing this without having the information, but 2, having the dialogue with the community, because it didn't happen the first time around. Whether we want to be here or not, it didn't happen the first time around.
So we could get the baseline, and then if we decide we wanted to change something at that point in time, when we get the report we asked for, we could always go look at it then. Okay. No notices of motion, general announcements. Before we go to general announcements, there's a couple of information memos that were distributed. Jason, did you want to talk about any of those? Do you want me to? It's up to you.
Sure, I'll be very brief, looking at the clock. The first one was with regards to our customer service improvements. I will take no credit for this. This was an initiative started by the mayor's office and Megan Steinoff. Like any good bureaucracy, why have one number when you can have 8 numbers to call when you have an issue? So what we did was during the early days of COVID, we were noticing some significant issues when counselors were calling in with issues or complaints, how many people that had to get triaged to. So staff, including Shelley Darlington, will be launching a new phone number and a new email address that all your COVID complaints can go to one source, get triaged properly, and get a response back. Because with these issues, there's usually a multifaceted number of departments that need to respond to it. Public health, could be community service, and that kind of stuff. So they've worked really hard to put in one number and one email address for COVID complaints and questions we'll go to. That will be being launched tomorrow. So you'll see some meeting on that. So we'll direct council to hand out that number or that email if there's questions or concerns. The other information memorandum, I know there was always concern about delegated authority of the CAO, and this is part of the reporting that goes to it. There's 22 uses of the delegated authority. To be clear, there was really one decision impacted 20 of those. Because we've closed our buildings to take in tenders and stuff, we used a different approach. It's an electronic approach, so that covers off 20 of them. There was one proposal to lease land that we have to a farmer that has been farming it for years, and the other one was to buy some cars that were approved under the budget because our mileage for bylaw officers are going through the roof during COVID, so we wanted to move quickly on that. So those are the two information memorandums.
I personally love the one phone number. It's always a challenge remembering multiple, but one I can remember to hand off to people when they're asking. Any other questions from councillors? The other motion, it wasn't in the agenda that we needed to add, is that Jason Burgess be appointed as a municipal law enforcement officer for Norfolk County, effective immediately. So if I could have a mover. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, did you want to record that? Get it to work.
All right, Councillor Geisens.
Yes.
Councillor Columbus.
Yes?
Councillor Huffman.
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes.
Councillor Rabbits.
Yes.
Councillor Martin.
Yes.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Councillor Michele.
Yes.
Mayor Chop.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you.
I had one. Thank you, and through you. And I am plagiarizing some of this from Trevor Meisner of Manager Organizational Health and Wellness. I could stop. Okay. So again, Trevor Meisner, Manager Organizational Health and Wellness Programs with Norfolk County. I sent out an email recently acknowledging that today is April 28th and is designated as the National Day of Mourning. This day started in Canada and is now recognized by over 100 countries throughout the world. This is a day where we are to recognize those that have lost their lives or have been injured in the workplace. In these very difficult times, please take a moment to think about all those individuals that have been affected by a workplace accident. An interesting quote that was provided by Trevor, in 2018, there were over 250,000 Canadians injured while at work. Over 1,000 of those Canadians had lost their lives due to a workplace accident or illness. Today is a day where we take a moment to think about those workers. I would encourage everyone to think in your own workplaces and those in your family and the places that they work. Challenge yourself to think about what you could do to make your workplace a safer place, not only for you, but for your colleagues. And that actually leads to the mask that is on my face today. It's something that I provided myself. It's not an N95 mask, it's just a dust mask. But this mask doesn't actually protect me from the COVID-19 virus. It protects you from my water droplets. And I'm sitting in Councillor Geison's seat here, and I'm cognizant of that as I put on, my hand sanitizer and I wear this mask. Think about the small things that you could do to make your workplace just that much safer for yourself and for your coworkers on today, the National Day of Mourning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rabbit. Anyone else? Anyone? Councillor Michelli?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not exactly sure if this portion of our agenda is the appropriate place for me to put this, but I don't know where else to put it. So I just would like to ask our CIO if you might comment on a possible suggestion, since everybody is, as Councillor Rabbits has just mentioned, observing all of these protocols for COVID-19, staying home, washing their hands, washing their clothes, and using perhaps an inordinate amount of water, as that more than they usually would, if we might be able to consider possibly lowering or helping with some water rates for residents.
Through the chair to the councillor, I know looking for water reductions has come up in some emails. The challenge with water is the total cost of water is put to the users, so the total cost will always be there. So if it costs $100 million to run the water system, then the people who use have to pay the $100 million. If you try to make any changes to the rate, you either end up with a deficit, which will get added to next year's bills, or you end up, we can't even put it off to the taxpayer. You're not allowed to subsidize water rate from the taxpayer. So there's no option on the cost. Ironically, the more water you use, your actual cost per liter actually decreases. So your unit rate actually goes down because you're taking that cost and spreading it out over more water usage. So unfortunately, the cost just gets allocated to the users, and there's nothing we can do. Or if we run a deficit, it gets run into next year's budget, so you just end up paying for it next year.
Thank you.
Anyone else? For any general announcements? Councillor Columbus?
Yes, I wonder, this is to Mr. Burgess, wonder if we can get a report sometime, the status report on the Moose Harbor water supply and also the Waterford EMS situation there. I know we've hired 4 more paramedics, so we certainly have full complement 24/7, I believe. Just wondered where that particular project is at in Waterford and the one in Moose Harbor.
Through the chair, I just want to confirm, so it was an update on the EMS hirings for Waterford?
On the facility in Waterford itself.
The facility, okay.
That's correct.
I'll do that.
For years, we've been speaking about putting an addition on there, and I haven't heard anything of late. And I would imagine that some of the workers there are getting anxious to find out what's happening.
Any other questions? Or general, go ahead, Jason.
Through the mayor to council, I just wanted to take a quick moment to draw your attention to your information package, page 94. There is a memo there just with reference to public consultations that Norfolk County is going to be essentially with COVID-19 pandemic and or us not allowed to have mass gatherings and such. It's made it very difficult for us to proceed through some of our engineering planning design processes, particularly as it relates to the municipal class EAs that can be required. So essentially, we're working kind of on a project-by-project basis with our communications team and with the consultants for our various projects to look at a way that we can better engage the public through online or virtual means. Right now, this may include the establishment of some project-specific web pages that would be hosted on our Norfolk County website, using more online surveys as opposed to expecting people to come to, say, a public information center and filling out a paper survey in person, more direct mailings to their homes. We've had suggestions for certain projects that consulting teams could put together a recorded presentation that could be shared with the public or posted on a website, as well as an increased opportunities for some virtual question and answer sessions. So we just wanted to kind of highlight that to council that despite some of the physical restrictions that may be getting placed on our abilities to engage the public and seek their input for projects, we are working very closely with our communications team in order to try and find alternative means where we can solicit this information. Related to getting information out, I just wanted to quickly touch on some of our ongoing construction and what's currently in progress across Norfolk County. King Street reconstruction in Delhi resumed near the start of March. It's currently ongoing. That is currently really our only active project at this time. However, notices will be getting mailed or have been mailed for some of these other projects. Summit Circle, that we're doing some storm sewer installations, Summit Circle in Simcoe. It's scheduled to begin on May 6th. College Ave West, or College Ave in Waterford, that project which was in progress last year in that northwest quadrant of Waterford, they're looking to start back up again effective May 4th, which is Monday. Chrysler and Maple reconstructions in Delhi, we're projecting starting in mid to late May. Our urban asphalt program, where we basically are doing shave and pave jobs, that is projecting right now to be starting after July 1st. And just in general, we've been working with our contractors to get going on a lot of these critical infrastructure projects that we have. And it's kind of looking like it's that mid to late May we'll see an increase in the number of projects that start. And essentially, I alluded to it earlier that I would bring back a more fulsome report as Councillor Michelle had requested as to some of the stage timings that we have of these projects now that we know that contractors are available. They've been able to secure the proper supplies. They have COVID-19 contingency plans in place for the safety of their workers, just so that as all of these pieces are slowly falling together, we'll be reporting back just to let you know where we're at with the startup of our 2020 construction season.
Thanks, Jason. Councilor Shelley, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering if I could, while Jason, you're speaking about these construction updates, if it's possible for you to just briefly, if it's possible at all, update us on the Causeway Bridge project.
Through the mayor to council, the Long Point Causeway project, they're still working on some engineering design. The archaeological work I know is not set to resume, mainly because of it's not deemed essential work at this point. However, like I said, the other engineering work is continuing on. We do have full support for whatever activities that Parsons can complete. They have our support that we do deem this to be a critical infrastructure project. for anyone in the area who's traveled over that, the bridge anytime recently, we know that there's some wood decking that is starting to look a little beat up. We actually have a contractor set to go and get some replacement boards, put it in there. So the idea is that we'll do this temporary patch on that bridge in order to continue to get us through the 2020 year until we can actually get the construction started and that bridge replaced.
Thank you, Jason.
Anyone else? Okay, there's just the last closed session report. I'm assuming everybody's read it. Is there any need to go into closed session? Or can we just move the recommendation in open session? Anyone? Councilor Shelley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If it's okay, I'm going to check with the clerk to see if we're allowed to do that.
We're allowed. Unless you need to debate something that you feel is, okay. So in that case, I'm going to read the recommendation as printed. That report FS 20-17 changes to service delivery at the transfer stations be received, and that cash no longer be accepted at Norfolk County's transfer stations, effective immediately, and further that this change be included into corporate communications to the residents of Norfolk County. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Rabbits. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, I guess that should be Andy. Ugh.
I was going to let that one slide. All right, Councillor Geisens. Councillor Geisens?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Columbus?
Yes.
Councillor Huffman?
Yes.
Councillor Van Passen?
Yes.
Councillor Rabbits? Yes. Councillor Martin? Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Councillor Michele?
Yes.
And Mayor Chop?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, motion moved by Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Martin, that bylaw 2020-33 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County, this council meeting held on the 28th day of April 2020, be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. All those in favor? Carried. And finally, that council be adjourned at 7:38 p.m., moved by Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? I like how Chris's hand's still frozen on the screen. It's carried. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.